Today we have a special review. As a Christmas gift, a friend of mine who moved out of state sent me a book called Warm Bodies. It's a zombie love story. Now, some of you might know it from the movie that came out not too long ago. I actually haven't seen the movie, though I was curious about it, so everything that I talk about here applies only to the book. For instance, one of the major differences is that in the book, the main character dresses more business casual. One thing the book emphasizes over and over again is the feature that stands out about him the most is his red necktie that he clearly never wears in any of the movie posters. I should also mention that before my friend Dawn moved away, she hosted an anime club that I was a part of, and she's a big fan of romance stories like Twilight or Scott Pilgrim. I'd like to think that Scott Pilgrim represents a high point in that genre. I personally thought the Scott Pilgrim movie was just about perfect, and this definitely feels like the kind of thing that she would go for, but is it any good? Let's find out. The story is told from the perspective of a zombie named R, who tells us all about zombie culture. Why yes, zombies have their own culture, didn't you know? They have homes and families and schools, they go to church and have their own unique way of looking at the world. They also spend a lot of time talking and thinking, surprisingly enough. Then one day while hunting for food, R eats the brain of a young man named Perry and starts to see his memories. He's left with a strong impression of Perry's girlfriend Julie, who's there as well. But instead of eating her, he brings her back home with him and tries to keep her safe. But eventually Julie has to go back to her own home and R follows her, so we see how humans live in a converted stadium with houses made out of whatever loose material they can throw together. We also get glimpses of the history leading up to this point. It's actually pretty depressing, but it's also fascinating. And as Julie and R spend more time together, R begins changing and regaining his humanity. But they face opposition on both sides, from Julie's father, the general who leads the human survivors, and from the zombie elders called Bonies. As an all-out war escalates between the living and the dead, with Julie and R caught in the middle, will their love prevail? What do you think? So yeah, the story is basically Romeo and Juliet crossed with the Living Dead series, which turns out to be its greatest strength and its biggest weakness. On the positive side, if you like stories with a kind of quirky, unique premise, then a zombie love story is sure to draw your attention. I like all the description that goes into the zombie and human societies. All the characters get some great development, the action gets really intense, and the Bonies are legitimately frightening. It's moments like this where the writing really shines, and yet it's all very easy to read. It's a casual story that after I received it, I was able to sit down and finish it very quickly. On the downside though, this book does not get the concept of subtlety at all. It isn't like Night of the Living Dead, it is Night of the Living Dead. Right down to the we are them and they are us message. It is Romeo and Juliet, from the story about the two lovers from opposite sides who can't be together, right down to the characters' names. And without giving anything away, there's a part at the end with Julie's dad where the message is so blunt that I could take Thor's hammer Mjolnir, carve the word symbolism into the side, hit you right in the face with it, and that would still be too subtle by comparison. But what really bothers me here is Julie. Julie, by the way, is a type of character known as a manic pixie dream girl, and in case you didn't know that, the book literally describes her that way. Now, a lot of her characterization has to do with her relationship with Perry, who we later find out was a sensitive soul who became hard and bitter from all the horrible things happening around him. By contrast, Julie tries to represent hope, which is a really good concept, but the way she goes about it usually ignores all common sense and takes the form of a magical flying unicorn that farts out fairy dust. Like I said, she gets some great character development throughout the story, but there are also moments when she is genuinely insufferable. When R first takes her to his home, she gets covered in zombie blood to hide her scent, and is then told to act like a zombie to avoid drawing attention to herself. And she does for a few minutes, but then she forgets all about that and just does whatever the hell she wants, playing with her iPod, having full conversations with R out in the open. Hell, at one point she even starts giving R driving lessons before, oh big shocker, the other zombies realize she's alive and start attacking her. I never would have seen that coming. See, the problem is that she acts like a modern teenager and not one growing up in a zombie apocalypse, but only when the story decides that she is this way for no goddamn reason. Now, I've been told that it's played more for comedy in the movie, but the book takes itself so seriously that I had a hard time letting the comedic moments sink in, especially later on when Julie starts trying to explain the zombie curse with poetry. And what's the big solution to everything? We're gonna change the world with our love, man. Our love will start a revolution. And we don't know how yet, but we're gonna fix everything because we just want it so bad, you guys. Now, I really don't want to sound like I'm being overly negative here because the book does have a lot of good things going for it, but that also makes the ridiculous moments stand out that much more. And the reason I'm picking on these segments so much is because it literally feels like they were written by a different author compared to the rest of the book. By the way, how exactly does kissing a zombie sound romantic? Because I just can't get over the idea that it would probably taste like raw sewage. In fact, I don't even have to imagine all that much. R puts some really nasty things in his mouth. But anyway, that's Warm Bodies, the book. Unfortunately, I ended up not caring for the actual love story all that much, but it's a very interesting take on zombies, and I like how the world and the characters were all built up. I was never bored while reading it, and I'm even more curious now about how the movie compares. Again, here's a big shout out to my friend Dawn for sending this to me. Thanks a lot, and I hope you're having a good new year.